Two Western leaders break ranks, flying to Beijing to stand beside Xi Jinping, Vladimir Putin, and Kim Jong-un at a parade boycotted by NATO and the EU. As Xi unveils hypersonic missiles and nuclear-capable drones, Slovakia's Robert Fico and Serbia's Aleksandar Vučić defy Europe's line on Russia and embrace China's vision of a multipolar world. A fractured West, an emboldened Axis, and a parade that signals more than history. Two European nation leaders are breaking ranks with the West to attend Xi Jinping's Victory Day parade in Beijing, a stage largely boycotted by NATO and the EU. Serbian President Aleksandar Vučić and Slovakian Prime Minister Robert Fico arrived in Beijing on September 2nd to attend a massive military parade hosted by Chinese President Xi Jinping, commemorating the 80th anniversary of the end of World War II following Japan's surrender. Vučić and Fico, both critical of sanctions on Russia over its war in Ukraine, are the only Western leaders attending. Their attendance is a stark defiance of the Western consensus. Most European nations and the United States are boycotting the event, citing Russia's invasion of Ukraine and China's growing strategic alignment with Moscow and Pyongyang. Fico, who leads a NATO and EU member country but has opposed Western sanctions on Russia, has had tense relations with Zelensky and broken ranks with European allies. Earlier, on September 1st, he accepted the invitation to China for the celebrations of the 80th anniversary of the end of the Second World War, saying,
"In line with the thus defined Slovak foreign policy, I accepted the invitation to China for the celebrations of the 80th anniversary of the end of the Second World War. I respect every single victim of the fight against fascism. Therefore, I have in the past stood with respect in front of memorials in Moscow, Normandy, or Washington. This week it will also be in Beijing."
Fico said it was necessary to use the opportunity to meet world leaders and that he had informed EU representatives about his trip. However, he did not further specify the agenda of his meetings in Beijing.
I personally regret, and I admit I do not understand why, that from among EU countries, only Slovakia will be present in Beijing. New world order is being built. New rules of the multipolar world. New balance of powers, which is extremely important for stability in the world. Being part of such discussions means supporting dialogue and not playing the role of an offended little child. This is how the EU and its representatives are currently behaving.
So, what do Fico and Vučić want in Beijing? For Robert Fico, this is about projecting independence from Brussels and Washington. The Slovak leader has consistently opposed Western arms deliveries to Ukraine and has advocated for closer ties with both Russia and China. His presence in Beijing reinforces that stance and signals to his domestic audience that Slovakia will not be bound by NATO orthodoxy. For Aleksandar Vučić, the calculation is more delicate. Serbia remains a candidate for EU membership but has never abandoned its traditional closeness to Russia. By attending the parade, Vučić reaffirms those ties while also cultivating deeper relations with Beijing, a major investor in Serbian infrastructure and technology. It is a balancing act, signaling loyalty to old partners while keeping pressure on Brussels during accession talks. The message from both leaders is clear: Europe is not a monolith. Within NATO and the EU, dissenting voices are willing to embrace China's vision of a so-called multipolar world order. Meanwhile, during a bilateral meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin in China on September 2nd, Fico said that Ukraine is free to pursue EU membership, but it cannot be allowed to join NATO.
There is an important topic that I will discuss with President Zelensky on Friday. On one hand, we support Ukraine on this matter, joining the EU. On the other, and I've been saying this all along, Ukraine can't become a member of NATO. This is my final decision. But as for EU accession, we are ready for cooperation with Ukraine.
Putin responded by pointing out that Moscow had never opposed Kiev's EU membership. However, he stressed that its NATO ambitions are an entirely different question and an issue which affects Russia's national security.
Постоянно мы видим сейчас, постоянно.
We constantly see some kind of hysteria being pumped, claiming Russia plans to attack Europe. I think that sane people understand this is a provocation or full incompetence, because any sane person clearly understands that Russia has never had any intention to attack anyone, has no such intention now, and will never have it.
Putin also stated that after the Western-backed coup in Ukraine in 2014, Moscow was forced to defend its interests and the people who connect their lives, their fate with Russia.
When it comes to Russia, it was forced to defend its interests and people who link their lives and their fate with the Russian Federation, with Russia, with our history and traditions. That's the essence of the conflict. In Ukraine, that's where it comes from. This is not our aggressive behavior, but the one coming from the other side. And we have no objectives other than to defend our interests.
For the last 3 days, Xi Jinping has played host in one of China's busiest port cities, welcoming leaders from across Asia and the Middle East for a carefully choreographed summit designed to showcase his vision of a new world order. Now the Chinese leader is set to exhibit a very different image with an ostentatious show of military might. On September 3rd, he will commandeer Beijing's main artery, the Avenue of Eternal Peace, for a major military parade showing off the country's cutting-edge hypersonic weapons, nuclear-capable missiles and undersea drones alongside thousands of goose-stepping soldiers. More than 20 world leaders, including Russia's Vladimir Putin and reclusive North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, will gather in Beijing for the September 3rd Victory Day event. Xi's message with his multi-day exercise of soft and hard power is clear. China is a force that wants to reset global rules, and it's not afraid to challenge those of the West. Hitting that message home is Xi's guest list for the gathering, a cohort of more than 24 China-friendly world leaders topped by Russian President Vladimir Putin and North Korean leader Kim Jong-un, which also includes Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian. For the Western leaders desperately trying to ramp up pressure on Putin to end his war in Ukraine, those optics will appear stark. Iran, North Korea, China and Russia are seen as an emerging anti-American axis by some observers in the West precisely because Tehran and Pyongyang have fed Moscow weapons and, in the case of Pyongyang troops, while China has aided its war-torn economy and industry. As Xi gives them seats by his side on a symbolic day for China, he is showing himself as the one global heavyweight who could stand a real chance to pressure Putin to end his war, and that he's not going to use that pull to play by the West's rules. Under President Trump, the US is shaking up its alliances and causing economic pain for countries around the world, including among friends and allies, with his global trade war. Xi sees an opportune moment to make what might be his most dramatic showing yet of his challenge to a world based on Western rules and sensibilities. For Beijing, the optics are powerful. With Vladimir Putin in attendance, Xi Jinping can showcase a coalition of leaders resistant to Western isolation, sanctions, and military dominance. But the stakes extend far beyond ceremony. By participating, Fico and Vučić strengthen their access to Chinese capital and political support, while Beijing gains symbolic proof that Western unity is fractured. As Europe struggles to maintain cohesion over Ukraine and its China policy, the images from Beijing's parade will underscore an uncomfortable reality. Even within the West's own ranks, leaders are willing to stand shoulder to shoulder with Xi and Putin.